Welcome to This Explainer. I am so incredibly excited you're here today because we are finally going to decode and demystify one of the most frequently used and, honestly, most misunderstood titles in the entire corporate world: business development. I mean, you see it all over LinkedIn, you hear it tossed around in boardrooms, but what does it actually mean? Well, get ready because we're about to break the whole shebang down and completely transform how you look at company growth.
So here's our roadmap for today. First up, we'll cover why BD is bigger than just sales. Second, the 4 core questions every BD pro absolutely must ask. Third, the practical BD lifecycle loop. And finally, number 4, why BD acts as an unmatched career accelerator.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, bigger than just sales. Okay, let's dive into this. The absolute biggest misconception out there, and I mean the one that confuses founders, executives, and new hires alike, is that business development is just, a fancy, elevated synonym for sales. It's not. No way. To really get BD, we have to start by expanding our perspective. By definition, business development is the process of creating long-term value for a company by identifying opportunities, building relationships, increasing revenue, and expanding into new markets. I want you to mentally highlight that exact phrase, creating long-term value. Because BD isn't just about getting a signature on a contract today. It's the ongoing, relentless search for where a company should grow next. It's literally the architectural blueprint for the future.
And because it's so focused on the future, BD is uniquely multidisciplinary. It acts as a comprehensive growth engine, not just some single siloed department. A true business development role combines elements of sales, marketing, strategy, partnerships, customer success, market research, and innovation. It's all rolled into one. You kind of have to understand the market like a researcher, position your offering like a marketer, and of course, negotiate like a seller.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how stark the contrast between these two worlds actually is. Sales is fundamentally about closing deals for revenue today, right? It focuses narrowly on the product and the specific customer in front of you. And the metrics are highly transactional, like, did you hit your quota? Did you make your calls? Business development, on the other hand, is all about finding opportunities for revenue tomorrow. It requires this long-term, market-focused mindset that's totally centered on partnerships. You aren't measuring calls here. You're measuring structural expansion, looking at new channels and total addressable market expansion. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference in mindset. Just listen to how they talk. A salesperson says, I want to sell this software. It's direct, it's one-to-one, right? Now, listen to the BD manager. Can we partner with a telecom company that gives this software to 100,000 customers? See, you're looking at the exact same product, but a BD perspective reveals a completely different, massive, one-to-many growth lever. It's really about finding the lever that moves the entire market, not just one single account. But listen, we really got to be careful here, because this brings us to the ultimate trap. New BD hires often mistakenly default to chasing closed deals. They get anxious and just kind of revert back to what they know. But if your weekly activity is 100% outbound calls and 0% market or partnership thinking, well, you aren't doing BD. You're just doing sales. You've completely missed the structural work. Which brings us to section 2, the 4 core questions. So, how do we stay out of that sales trap? At their absolute heart, a business development professional is really just someone who gets paid to constantly ask 4 foundational questions, day in and day out. Question number 1, where can we grow? And actually, scratch that. This isn't just about geography. It's about adjacent industries, new product applications, totally untapped verticals. This single question defines the structural direction of the entire company. Question number 2, who should we sell to? This shifts the focus directly to identifying the ideal target audience or the absolute perfect strategic partner. It's all about finding that exact right fit for maximum leverage. Question number 3, how can we create value? Now, notice it doesn't ask, how can we extract value? Value creation is the core currency of any successful BD deal. If both sides aren't winning, the partnership is absolutely going to collapse eventually. And finally, question number 4. How do we build long-term relationships? Because BD is entirely about sustainable connections that pay dividends over years, not just some one-off transaction that looks good on this month's scorecard. Okay, let's move to section 3, the BD lifecycle loop, and see how this all builds together. So let's transition from that high-level mindset into practical execution, where the rubber actually meets the road.
In practice, BD work just doesn't have a hard start and stop. It moves through a repeating loop rather than a straight line. Seeing this cycle is absolutely crucial to understanding how a single, seemingly minor task, like say a cold email, or drafting a partnership term sheet, or even tweaking a pricing model, how that actually fits perfectly into the bigger picture of corporate growth.
Here is the engine itself. The 5 steps of the BD life cycle: research, reach, relate, reach agreement, and retain and expand. This life cycle functions as a continuous, repeating engine for growth. As you finish up step 5, it naturally feeds right back into step 1. So let's look a little closer at how these gears turn.
Let's break down the first 2 steps. Step 1 is research. Before you do anything, you absolutely have to deeply understand the market, the buyer, and the competitive landscape. That deep market understanding is exactly what naturally leads to step 2, reach. Because you did the research up front, you can now generate and qualify highly targeted opportunities instead of just, blindly throwing darts at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Once you've finally made contact, we enter the middle of the loop. Step 3 is relate. This is where relationships are actively built. You're moving opportunities through the pipeline using consultative selling, listening, adapting, and finding that mutual value we talked about. That trust then paves the way for step 4, reach agreement. This is the highly technical stage where you negotiate terms and formally propose a structure that actually works for everyone involved.
So the crucial point here is that in BD, reaching an agreement isn't the end, it's just a milestone. Step 5 is retain and expand. You absolutely must grow the relationship long after the deal closes, because a successful partnership is going to reveal entirely new areas for collaboration. And that post-deal expansion feeds right back into the start of the loop, triggering new research and new reach.
All right, bringing us to section 4, your career accelerator.
Mastering this continuous, strategic work doesn't just grow companies, it's famously known for setting professionals up for massive, outsized career jumps. BD is a career accelerator precisely because it touches virtually every single function of a business. It acts as this unique launchpad, building an incredibly rare combination of market sense, negotiation skill, and financial literacy. You aren't just learning a single hard skill here, you are learning how a business fundamentally breathes and grows. And because of that super diverse skill set, we can actually map different personality types to their ideal next career steps. For those who gravitate toward the thrill of the deal and just love closing, BD naturally leads to sales leadership roles, like a VP of sales. For the channel builders out there who prefer strategy over individual deals, partnerships and alliances is definitely the path. If you have an analytical mind and you love that research phase, RevOps or corporate strategy awaits. And finally, because of that rare mix of market sense and financial literacy we mentioned, BD transfers directly to founder or general management roles, where you're running entire business units or companies. We've covered the mindset, the core questions, the strategic loop, and the career paths today. But I want to leave you with one final thought to take with you as you look at your own work and your own career trajectory. Ask yourself honestly, are you just chasing today's deals, or are you actually doing the structural work of building tomorrow's opportunities? The answer changes absolutely everything. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new perspective on the true power of BD.